Welcome back, y'all. My name's Seb Luca. You can call me Sebastian, and welcome to OPPC. Today, cut a long story short, it's going to be a tedious video for some, depending on what you're after. But as the title depicts, it's a true depiction of the raw performance of our new graphics card. Before we get into what is essentially what wasn't going to actually be published, it was more myself recording for my own data purposes and to be able to evaluate that data later on if necessary. I have purchased a new graphics card. But before we get into that, what we had to replace was starting to get this crumpled up 2070 Turbo. So it's your blower style card, and yeah, she still does quite well. I'm happy with the performance. It's a GeForce, okay, it takes a 6-pin and an 8-pin, but the problem was one of the display ports has failed on it, and also one other port is a USB-C port that can only handle maximum of 120 Hertz, and that's pushing it. That was meant to be designed for VR initially, so go figure. But she's, to me, still a beautiful looking card. Unfortunately, we do need to upgrade her in the gaming rig so that she runs properly with the streaming rig here. But she's not going to go to waste. Okay, so that's for sure. Cut a long story short, you can probably see just in there's a 1050 Ti, which does well for its age as well. It's only a 4GB model. This 2070 is 8GB. That 1050 Ti is GDR5. This is GDR6. So for the purpose of upgrading the streaming rig's GPU, it should do a little bit better regarding myself not having to utilize the CPU for streaming purposes and rendering purposes at times, but the NVENC encoder in the GPU itself, which should give off a better image and depiction as well, especially when it comes to top side there, which is the back monitor connected to the gaming monitor. Sometimes it struggles to give you a crisp image unless it's actual full application, and it's partially probably to do with my old capture card, which is an Nvidia 985 or something like that. So to cut a long story short, this is going to be an upgrade now to our gaming rig, our streaming rig, and that goes into the 97K. On the other hand, we were meant to originally do a 5950 build, which was meant to replace this rig. Unfortunately, that chip was dead on arrival, so instead of going through the process of dealing with another dead chip in my life, I decided to splurge on the competition, okay, and I had to go for where the value was in comparison to the competition, and performance numbers dictate that the RX 6700 XT produced by AMD is probably in line with what I currently need. RTX isn't of the highest value to me currently as yet. Maybe in 2 to 3 years time it may be a different story, but by then, if it has been adopted as such, as proficiently as you would expect it to be in that case, then I'm sure the Radeon cards will be able to compete on a similar level to the NVIDIA cards by then as well. For the moment's sake, this is advertised as a 1440p card. and to be realistic, 1080p on high everything is great to have for a change, especially if you're playing esports titles. You get to play them at the highest settings and not worry about frame loss or frame count. I've already got her in the machine just behind me, and she's running. There were some problems setting up the streaming rig with the Radeon card as opposed to an NVIDIA card. I had some HDCP compliance issues which I had to sort out, but since then it seems like a really strong card. And what I'm going to take you on a journey is myself, just after the install, going through benchmarking processes, complete legit benchmarking, nothing fabricated, regarding raw data after install with correct drivers, and also with just a little bit of tweaking. So if you're interested in knowing how the RX 6700 XT competes, and then there's a comparison to that of the 2070 turbo model card, which I had overclocked at around 1900 megahertz. Okay, so just shy of 2000 megahertz it was running at. Okay, and that's you'll see that in the benchmark results, the average as what it ran on TimeSpy. On the other hand, these are rated to run at around 2400 megahertz or so, 2450 megahertz. People say not to look at that as a reflection of actual value, but it truly is. And you do see it in the performance numbers. The 6700 XT for me was a good fit because it's got 12 gigabytes of DDR6, so it's an upgrade from that. And I had to justify that because the equivalent NVIDIA version was $200 or $300 more for something of, if not overclocked that card, of, well, if overclocked with that card and how it was, of pretty much exactly the same value with a little bit more forgiving RTX performance. So yeah, cut a long story short, I'll end it there. And if you want to watch the ride, and I apologize for the camera work and the shonky camera work and perhaps audio that may omit itself in the next half an hour or so, but you'll get to see the TimeSpy results and you can make a verdict for yourself. For some reason, the CPU score that I was benching with the other card, with the Radeon card in there, as opposed to the NVIDIA card, is about 500 points down consistently. And you see that there's no difference in the CPU and how it should have been performing. I did try to eradicate any background apps from running in that, and it's been about 12 days since that benchmarking got done and that got done, and the only difference was a cumulative update to Windows. So I don't know if that's played a part in the performance scheme of things, but it's something to note. And yeah, wish me luck. There's no real B-roll footage or anything attached to this video, so yeah, like I said, if you're not interested, tune out now. Otherwise, if you want to see 6700 XT in action and how it actually performs and see some true figures, which aren't necessarily always posted, then by all means stick around and enjoy. So peace out, y'all. I'll be back in a second with the crappy footage for ya. Bye. Alrighty, so we've got it unboxed, and now we're going to be doing the customary peels. So I'll let you know from then on how this NITRO plus Sapphire is going. Peace out. So she just beeped and she's starting up. Yeah. She ran through some. Now she on A0. I don't know why we got signal. Yeah, we got signal. We got signal. Let me just click on there. So, she going red, but she should go dark because my color scheme's set up to reflect the boom, 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 boom. So we're just loading up Time Spy. Unfortunately, we have to go through the process of running the visual trailer before we can run the benchmarks, which really sucks. There we got an indicator, just a small one. CPU temps 18 degrees. Core clock 2500 megahertz. GPU load 94%, 46 degrees. So it's already sort of heating up that GPU that we got over there. So, you know, she's a bit saggy, she's a bit wonky. And as you can see, and you know, like the scores would be much more reflective, you know, if for example I was doing this on like a 720p monitor, asking it to render, you know, in 4K, then it'd be a piece of piss. But it looks really beautiful, and I'm going to set this up so that we can actually watch this somewhat uninterrupted per se. So bear with me 1 second. No sound, even though there is sound running through the system. As you can see, she should fire up, and because of the sound, there's a slight flare. The gun scene. Loading graphics test 1. GPU temps have already spiked because this is the trail demo, and graphics test 1 is active with our Sapphire NITRO plus, nothing special. We got these little butterflies and stuff. Sorry, the monitor's really big. It makes it worse for the test per se, at least for, you know, when it comes to trying to get a good score, because it's, you know, having to do 4K in 4K. And they're 100% load, 56 degrees. This is on stock, out of a box, 19% load, 18 degrees temperature on the cores. Now we are loading up graphics test 2. So again, I apologize for the shonky camera work. I will try to go out just ever so slightly. So we do have multiple monitors also set up. Get a better picture of this. Running these tests. And this is on stock, you have to remember. I will also try to tricks it out just a little bit using the trick software if it allows you to do so, but from my understanding I'm going to have to use something a little different to try to overclock and see if I can get any more on these cores, on this architecture, on this RDNA architecture, RDNA 2 architecture, just because of the fact that it essentially is being pushed. If we have a look over here, 100%, 56 degrees GPU temp. Remember, this is test 2, a little bit more vigorous, and GPU clocks are around 2500 megahertz. 24 just dropped, 25 CPU temp. Now we're going into loading CPU tests. Now this will be a little worse because I've got less RAM than I had before available. But there goes the test. There she blows. And there she goes, I guess. I don't know. Nobody really knows. Oh no, she's done already. Okay. So, we go back to here. Yeah, we had our CPU temps were spiking as they went to 22 degrees and they've gone back down again. 47 degrees on the GPU, it's dropping now, 46, 45. We've got our score, and this is on stock with a few applications running on the background. 12,536, graphics score 12,338, and CPU score 13,792. Now I've had that CPU score above 14,000 already quite easily, 14,200 or so. So we're going to have to double check where we lost out on the CPU there. And apart from that, the graphics score, this is the first run on stock after the install and after a little bit of running. And also to understand, she is compressed with a hypercard that's slotted in just underneath there. So max airflow isn't quite the thing yet. If we, from here, you see if it's a times by score, your score average 12,178, best 13,551. There's always someone with a better score, isn't there? If we can just have a look at average boost clock, so CPU graphics score test 1 80.61 frame rates per second, test 2 70.6 frame rates per second, CPU test was 46.34 frame rates per second. If we can go into estimated game performance. Okay guys, I'm going to pause it there. We've gone from here and we go into results and we compare it with our OPPC sort of better run with a no memory overclock, default tweaked run, plenty of legroom, all day overclock with the processor at 5.1 gigahertz on all cores, with our NVIDIA RTX 2070, which was set at 1995 megahertz, so that's overclocked. Okay, we can see that the Radeon set at 2557 megahertz with the same CPU, and we can compare our results as such. And our results are 3D Mark score 26.8% higher. Graphics score was 31.5% higher. Our CPU score, on the other hand, as you can see, I had 14,252, was plus 3.3% higher with the NVIDIA card. So I have to work out what's going on with the CPU there, because we can definitely bump that score up. Apart from that, frame rates definitely higher by 30% on graphics test 1 and graphics test 2. CPU test higher by 3.3%, so negligible. Time SPY 1.2. Okay, valid result, yes. And that was done on August the 1st, 2020, 21st, and August the 12th, 2021. I'm gonna have to, so you can see down there, Sebastian Lucas OPPC. Okay, guys. So just to continue on, because of course I got a telephone call, graphics card here. You have to remember that the RTX 2070 was overclocked, and we had an average memory clock frequency of 1750 megahertz, average memory clock frequency of 1974 megahertz. Now the memory wasn't overclocked, but the clocks themselves, the game clocks, were overclocked on the NVIDIA RTX 2070, and that was at 1939 megahertz. The average clock frequency for the 6700 XT was 2504 megahertz, and this is on stock with average temperatures of 55 degrees to 61 degrees applicable. Okay, now just to verify as well, if we go into general, I mean not general, what am I saying? If we go into processor, okay, on processor we'll see that again 5.103 megahertz was the same clock speed. The difference there is quite dramatic considering the amount. And if we go into general, you can see that I did have 64 gigabytes of memory running before, whereas now this time I've only got 32, and hard drive models were the same, but the difference being that our Windows version has also been upgraded completely. There was a cumulative update which went through from the 1st of August to the 12th of August today. So that's something to check. Now I'm going to try to tweak those settings to get a better result on the CPU aspect of things, because that's 500 points difference, and that's a massive amount. Okay, and then I'm on top of that going to try to tweak those settings and those figures for the graphics score on this Sapphire card to see if we can get anything more out of it in an operational everyday capacity that's not pushing it too much, so that those thermals don't sit too high up, to be frank. Okay, guys. Now I've got the camera set up on top of the computer itself with the grill and the heat of the CPU right underneath the camera, so you'll hear it under load. We're going to run Firestrike. Unfortunately, this is the demo, so we have to run. We'll have to run the demo beforehand, which will beat up the CPU just a little bit, and everything else. 19 degrees. I don't know if you guys can see that over there clearly. 20 degrees on the CPU. Currently 2% GPU load. It's loading the Firestrike demo. Unfortunately, we have to run through that first. So Firestrike otherwise runs on DirectX 11, and I apologize for the mess, people. Now the Fusion software itself, so the demo puts the GPU under load, and it's 100% load, and it's running at 51 degrees. Okay, the core clock's around 2500 megahertz. CPUs are under 10 to 20% load. Current temperatures are 18 to 20 degrees. Okay, but what's more important is what we'll end up getting once the demo is complete, and the demo goes for ages, so it's unfortunate that when you try to test it out as a clean run, as opposed to someone who's got a high score and it's actually got the software per se, they don't have to go through the demo, so the demo doesn't hammer the GPU the first time around, you know, having it really toasty going into the actual testing phase itself, which is something that you have to consider. No audio, but I assure you, audio is running. Otherwise, my RGB wouldn't be on currently. Okay, because it reacts to the audio, as we can see over here. Let me just sorry about the camera angle. Over here we can see core clocks, 99% load. Okay, GPU fans don't seem to be signifying anything for the time being, which is a little worrisome. This is running through CAM software. It's just a click on it. We'll get into a better position so that we can see the actual run itself occur. And I apologize for the shonky camera work, people, but we're just getting an accurate depiction of what's happening. I just wanted to document it. We're running to the end of this run here, and GPU temps will hopefully have a chance to fall, which they haven't really, only 47 degrees as we load Firestrike graphics test 1, 47 degrees, so that sort of sucks. And now it's going to get hammered. So now it's being hammered, 100% load, and temps are spiking, 56 degrees. We don't have RPM pertaining to so that was graphic test 1 done, graphic test 2, and again we're back to about 48 degrees GPU temperatures, 46 degrees. Remember, I do have a Hyper M2 card slotted directly underneath the GPU. Okay, so GPU temperatures are at 56 degrees. 56 degrees at GPU load, 100% load, only 11% load on CPU, so we're not bottlenecked by the CPU whatsoever. Okay, 58 degrees GPU temps, so a little toasty there, definitely. 59 degrees, hopefully it won't get any higher. Core clocks are sitting around 2500 megahertz. 58 degrees, so it drops ever so slightly, and now we're loading the physics test, which is the CPU test itself, and 67%, 68% load on the CPU, 73% load on the CPU, 40 degrees, 70% load. Now you can hear it ramping up. It's not hammering it at any higher than what it should. This is only on 5.1 gigahertz. And now the combined test. This is on stock still. Okay, regarding the graphics card just being plug and play with all the right AMD software, and the software is running in the background applicably as well. So it's something to consider and also look into, and we'll compare the results between this and our better run slash only other run that we did with the RTX 2070, which was overclocked. So let her load the results, and our results are of this magnitude. So our clocks have gone back down to 14 degrees, 13 degrees, 46 degrees on the GPU. It should be sitting around 33 degrees. When I get the fan profile set up, I'll make sure it doesn't sit on idle any higher than that. And 3D Mark's score, graphics score 35,161, physics score 29,823, combined score 9,420, which if we go into now, we'll scroll down. If we go into graphics test 1 was 168 frames, graphics test 2 was 140 frames, physics score was 94.68 frames, combined test was 43.82. If we go to compare results online quickly, and better than 94% of all results. Okay, it's a valid result. If we go to average clock frequency was only at 2255 megahertz, and that's what I'm saying. That massive hit on the graphics card to begin with. So what we'll do is we'll add to compare, and we'll go into my results, and if we look at time supply over here, add to compare, and we'll compare these results, we can see that the 3D Mark score was 24.5% higher. The graphics score was 44.2% higher. The physics score, on the other hand, was 2.1% down. Again, the combined score was 2.8% down, which is odd because the physics score should be very much similar, if not as high. Graphics test 1 was 44.7% average on an increase in frame rates. Graphics test 2 was 43.8% average high on the frame rates. Physics test was 2.1% down, and the combined test, that's really important, is 2.8% down. That's on an RTX 2070 versus a 6700 XT. Okay, and remember that RTX this time around was at 20.25 megahertz as opposed to 25.66 megahertz. Okay, so it's something to consider. Test was performed August the 1st to August the 12th. There is a slight differential in the UI version. There was an upgrade in Windows. Of course, it may have decided to slow things down. So if we have a look at the graphics card results, and there we can see average clock frequency of 2255 megahertz as opposed to 1971 megahertz. Okay, average clock frequency, average memory clock frequency, none of them are overclocked. Average temperatures 55 to 59 degrees. And if we double check the processor just for verification's sake, again 5103, 5103. Okay, guys, and general wise, difference is different RAM in the system now as opposed to then. And yeah, we'll continue on with the next part, which will be myself trying to tweak this system into running the graphics card just a little bit higher to see if we can get some better results for you all. Now we are going to run this test again. I had to run the batteries, so unfortunately we're going to have to go through the demo all over again. So time spy, I've tried to tweak the settings per se on the GPU clock as much as I can. I don't know if they will hold or not. We'll see if there's a difference, at least in the CPU clock as well, and how it operates. So in real time loading time display, so you can see that the Radeon software wants to act up and play in. I still haven't tweaked any settings in the Radeon software for performance or anything like that. So I simply couldn't handle it. I know it's loading graphics test. So it's hung. So of course, Freddy Mark 0 is trying to update itself now, and an error has occurred. Let's try getting into it again. So of course, Freddy Mark 0 is locking me out from being able to complete this test now. We'll open up Steam. Downloads. No update pending. Collections. Freddy Mark 0 running. Stop it. Okay, so we'll physically try to stop it. Not sure what's going on with it. I'm going to restart the system. Alright, so we're starting 3D markup. And we're going to run the time supply benchmark. It's going to have to collect information. We'll see how it goes this time around. The Radeon software again wants to intervene here. Hopefully it runs without a hitch this time around. So we have to go through the, I've done a custom fan profile setting this time around, so you're going to hear it rev up and be a lot more generous. Fortunately, we can't skip this test, but it looks pretty. graphics test 1. I had to restart, so again I've got RGB software running in the background that's reflective of the audio itself, and will react accordingly, which is slightly annoying because it will put a bit of a burden on the CPU itself. Now with a custom fan profile, I'm trying to run it at a higher GPU clock boost. It seems to be successful at the moment and holding. I'm not going to push it much further than this. I'm trying to look for something that's just an everyday overclock on it, and just to get a general run and feel as to how it operates, and whether you can actually boost it much higher. Currently GPU clock sitting at around 2650 megahertz. So yeah. 45 degrees, GPU 100% load. The CPU test now. Hopefully it's a little closer to what we achieved before, which is 14,000 plus. I think it was 14,200. 80% load, 92%, 90% load, 48 degrees on the CPU. That's done with. And we're loading our results. So 131115, a graphics score of 1306. CPU score is again way down, 13776. I can't understand why that's the case. There must be a difference between 32 gigabytes of RAM as opposed to 64 gigabytes. Okay, the best score is 13551. We got a 13115. Okay. And now if we increase our CPU score to essentially what it should be at, we should be close to the best result, which is the world's best time spy score with AMD Radeon RX 6700 XT and Intel Core i9 10900K. Okay, so we'll compare results online. We'll have a compare results online and we'll see where we're at here. Better than 94% of all results. Interesting. Valid result. And our average clock frequencies were at 2637 megahertz. Memory clock frequency of 200, so average memory clock frequency, we haven't overclocked that. Average temperatures was at 46 degrees, OPPC. Again, this is an update since Windows occurred. If we add to compare, and then we go to my results, we can compare it to the time spy we did before, which was 12,536. Okay, so 13,115 we got this time. Okay. What we'll do is a Fire Strike one this time around. But if we have a look at, if we add to compare our best result and compare them side by side, we're up 4.6% and 5.4% with the slight boost to the Radeon card. We lost a little bit on the CPU score again this time around, which is odd. And we lost 0.1% on the frame rates there. Graphics S1 were up 5.5% and 5.4%. Validated, yes. ID. So UI version is different. It's the same. It's specifying the same there for the time being. Graphics card, on the other hand, if we go into graphics card, again, before we had an average clock of 2557 megahertz clock frequency. Now this time we had a clock frequency of 2661 megahertz with an average of 2637 megahertz as opposed to 2504. Average memory clock was slightly higher, and our average temperature was 46 degrees as opposed to 55 degrees with our custom fan profile. Okay, so that's as far as I'm going to push it for the time being, guys. Hope you enjoyed that, and that's just the Radeon card. I'll go to display properties now. I'll chuck it back into 4K. Keep changes, and it's in HDR. At the moment, we'll apply that. And yeah, guys, that's been OPPC playing around with our new 6700 XT. Peace out, y'all.